Yeah, and now with the next couple of picks and bans between Denmark and KZ, it's just going to be those generally good heroes like the Queen of Pain that you're talking about. Now we're just going to see Techies ban, not wanting to deal with the Techies Tusk lane, as there really aren't very many heroes that are well equipped to deal with that. Templar Assassin's reasonable if you want to throw a safe lane TA, but you just don't want to have to deal with it. They'll pick up a Shadow Fiend instead. That'll combo nicely with the Earthshaker in mid, and in general, be a good pick for the Radiant team.
Yeah, interesting pick coming out here for the Kazakhstan. They're going to pick up the Chen. So this may weaken their lanes a little bit, but the roaming potential early on is definitely good. Especially towards that mid lane where the Shadow Fiend will reside. If the Earthshaker is not present, he's definitely super vulnerable to what the Chen can bring to the table. So we'll see what the counter is in terms of the mid lane from the Dire side, but Chen pickup, not something we see all that often, and more than likely this will leave Tusk by his lonesome. So we'll see how he's able to fare up against this Radiant safe lane.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as other options, I'm not sure if there are very many for KZ, and I'm not sure if I like the Chen being picked up this early, but it'll be a very interesting pick to see how they utilize it. I think one of the big selling points here is the pressure they can apply to the mid lane with ganks once Chen gets like level 3. Get those 2 creeps up and running, and then have some other hero in that mid lane that could either set up or follow up after the Chen gets some sort of disable, either from a Dark Troll or from a Centaur wraparound with smoke. But regardless, we'll have to see how they utilize it. It's always a very interesting hero to be played right about now. It feels like having a jungler generally is a bit of a detriment unless you get active very early and often.
Yeah, and definitely expect to see that presence in the mid lane from the Chen. They are going to have to probably push down a couple of tier 1s as well. I mean, they have the heroes to do it early on with this Tusk and the Wyvern. Going to have to get probably an early active mid as well. You mentioned the TA earlier. They don't really have too much to deal with that TA just yet on the Radiant side, so I still wouldn't mind that pickup, but probably, I mean, the Lina and the Queen of Pain banned out right now, Leshrock as well, so those are your 3 kind of most popular mid laners, and already the Radiant are going to look to stymie the push and deal with that a bit with the Keeper of the Light.
And in general, just a good pick to have behind your Earthshaker too, just being able to constantly spam out those fissures. Although, maybe their safe laner is not going to benefit from that mana as much as a lot of heroes, maybe like that Phantom Lancer. I like the PL pick coming out from KZ. It's going to be a pretty self-sufficient safe laner against the Clockwork. There shouldn't be any situation where Clockwork's killing off the Phantom Lancer unless he absolutely just outright wastes his doppelganger. And as long as he has some sort of defensive support behind him, Winter Wyvern should always be there, or at least for the majority of the game be there. PL should be able to farm pretty reasonably if it is just the Clock.
Yeah, agreed. We'll see what the mid laners end up being for the Dire side. I think still a lot of things in the pool that help them out here. Shadow Fiend with the Earthshaker, though, is always a scary lane combination. We're going to need something with perhaps a disable available to him. They're going to ban out the TA, as you mentioned earlier. Ember Spirit going to be banned, of course, as he deals very well with the PL, and having the Chakra Magic behind him is going to be nice. Yeah, interesting pickup for the safe lane for the Radiant side, and you mentioned them probably utilizing a safe laner who really can benefit from the Chakra Magic, and Tiny is certainly one with the Avatos combo. So expect some early aggression, despite the Keeper of the Light being somewhat of a defensively natured support from this trio.
Yeah, I really like the Tiny pick here. Chen, Winter Wyvern, and to a lesser extent Tusk are all very susceptible to being dropped by that Avatos combo. I don't think this is going to be the super heavy farming Tiny that you usually see when you have him partnered up with an IO, but one that's going to be getting a little bit more aggressive early. Maybe pick up just Power Tread's Wand into the Blink Dagger immediately, and then just start picking off these squishier supports and activate him that way. Leave the Shadow Fiend to be farming inside the woods. I could see this pick really working out for their team, and I think as far as safe laners are concerned, it's pretty good. Gives them a nice cleave carry to deal with Phantom Lancer illusions later, although getting his mana drained is going to be quite a nuisance, and there are a lot of ways that they can kite him around between just a Tusk throwing out his kit here or there. They have a lot of good zone controlling spells. I think Tiny could very well work out here if they start snowballing and get those early Blink Dagger pickoffs.
Yeah, I feel like the Radiant definitely have a lot of ways to deal with what the Dire has to bring to the table. Like maybe the Clockwork doesn't fit exactly into their lineup, but of course that was a first phase pickup, and retrospectively maybe something like a Spirit Breaker would have fit a little bit better. But yeah, I definitely do like the ganker style Tiny here, as you mentioned, and Earthshaker will be able to secure some farm and some stacks for the Shadow Fiend mid, and they should be able to stymie any push with the Keeper of the Light as well. So it's going to be a little bit tough for the Dire side in terms of grouping up and 5-manning, but if they're able to get some momentum off some pickoffs early on with the Chen roaming towards that mid lane, get the Wind Ranger a bit of farm, they should be able to still have their way in this one.
Quickly, as we jump into this game, let's introduce our teams. On the Radiant side, it's going to be Denmark. Fury is going to be handling the Shadow Fiend mid, KSPR. On the Clockwork to the offlane, the Korean Zombie on the Keeper of the Light. That'll put, excuse me, stop moving around, IVZ on the Earthshaker. And I've descended on the Tiny, which I believe is not his official tag, but instead KYH. So that'll round out your Radiant or Denmark lineup.
Yeah, on the KZ side, we've got Stallcat leading the charge on his Tusk. It's going to leave an amazing on the Wyvern. Lucky on the Chen. Mantis. He's going to be picking up that PL, and finally, that's going to leave Sakura in the mid lane on the Wind Ranger.
Yeah, currently both of these teams are going to invade the enemy woods, going to secure themselves some vision and block out some camps, but not going to intercept each other. As far as who wins in a level 1 skirmish, it's pretty hard to call. These heroes aren't necessarily the greatest level 1. Chen's not going to be offering much of anything, but I think it's close enough to even to where both of these teams are warranted in feeling like maybe if we catch out one of the supports alone, or even a safe laner gets too overzealous, we could pick him off or take him down. Everybody's just going to back off. Each mid laner should get a Bounty Rune apiece, and things will progress much as normal at the start of the game. Shadow Fiend with that Bounty Rune is going to be going straight towards that bottle after getting a little bit of stats and starting out with a salve, as Wind Ranger has gone for more of a greedy build. Just the max stats, and then she'll have a salve flying out to herself as well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this mid lane fares. I mean, we saw it just a match ago, so definitely a little bit Wind Ranger favored early on, but Shadow Fiend has more in the ability to catch up here. We'll see if the Coddle plays a little bit of a quasi-jungle role as well. Tiny is going to be a little bit hard-pressed to farm without any support in lane, perhaps up against the Tusk, so we'll see if he rotates over anytime soon. Chen going to go immediately to the enemy jungle, though, and IVZ going to rotate over with the Fisher. They're not going to channel up and illuminate, but it is going to back off Lucky, and that's going to waste a bunch of his time early on.
Yeah, should that have worked out, should there have been no supports there, Lucky would have found himself with a really good angle to gank the Shadow Fiend in mid. So I can understand him going towards the aggressive jungle, but as you said, it is a lot of wasted time, and a lot of time that Lucky isn't farming, Lucky isn't ganking, and Lucky's really not doing much at all. He's going to move back into his own woods, but his large camp has been blocked, and this Chen is already off to a glacially slow start.
Stallcat taking a bunch of damage bot lane. He takes the Avalanche from the Tiny a moment ago and then hits the Illuminate as well. He's going to rely on that Mango and the Tango regen to keep him in lane, but he is soaking a lot of experience and even finding some farm here early on the Tusk. So really only being a dual lane thus far has helped him out.
Yeah, Tusk should be able to get a good amount of experience, and in a similar role to how the Tiny is going to be able to find some burst kills once he gets the appropriate levels. Tusk also, with like max out into the Ice Shards and a couple points to his Snowball, could very easily find kills on the likes of Shaker and Keeper. The Shaker has played a very hands-off role this game. He's made some stacks for the team, and in general is going to try to help out as best he can, but is going to be very underleveled for a long time. This stack is going to succeed, but unlucky enough for their team. Lucky's already snagged the Dark Troll Summoner that was there.
Yeah, looks like Sakura doing very well mid lane. Fury starting to catch up now. 8 CS on the SF, and already the bottles are on the way on both couriers. So looking pretty even thus far across the map. Looks like both safe laners getting quite a bit as well.
Yeah, the Tiny may be a little bit less so than the Phantom Lancer. I don't think anybody's super surprised about that. Keeper and Tiny, although it's very good at sustaining and threatening the enemy offlaner for kills, not until you get sufficient levels. Once level 5 comes out for the Tiny is really the big leap in power that they'd want before being able to take out the Tusk. And as far as offlaners that can survive that combo, Tusk is pretty high on the list, although he is going to take a large lump sum of damage. He'll be able to back off safely for now, probably get level 4 under his tower, and then back all the way back to base.
Yeah, Rocket Flare almost brought the PL super low. He had to salve up here. Interesting to see the Wyvern pick up this Orb of Venom on a ranged hero. Try and harass out KSPR on the Clockwork, but he's getting just as much as the Tusk is.
Triple raise in mid. Nicely done there, but with Invis Rune, Windrunner is going to survive. Close call. If Shadow Fiend had level 5, that's for sure a dead Windrunner.
Yeah, Fury certainly holding his own now. Looking to take over the Wind Ranger in terms of CS, and Tusk having to back out of lane is going to give the Clockwork a little bit of time to catch up and maybe surmount him in terms of XP. Clock picked up that level 4.5 now. Is going to have to go into the Rocket Flare to find some CS though, so it's going to hurt his solo kill potential here after a little bit. Arctic Burn not available for the Wyvern. KSP are going to catch a Lance, but he'll be fine to back off.
Yeah, and it looks like for the most part everybody's going to be just fine. After that really slow start, Lucky has now found himself level 3, so does have access to another creep, but for the most part it feels like the Chen is just farming it up. Right now he hasn't found any wild guns, hasn't stacked up anything, so his farm acceleration is going to be pretty slow, and in general, I think this Chen pick isn't working out necessarily as they'd like it to, but oh, down towards bottom, there's going to be a fissure, and Ice Shard's walling off the Tiny. He'll toss the Tusk up to the high ground, as the Keeper of Light will get a couple of free pot shots into him. They have another toss cooling down in 1 second. This should be a kill onto Stallcat, and it will be, as he's dropped down to the ground. That's going to be our first blood drawn by Tiny.
Nicely played by KYH there, tossing him up to the high ground, allowing himself to salve up. He was taking quite a bit of damage from the Tusk, so well played there. And as you mentioned, gets a few right clicks in, and there's the first blood going the way of the safe laner. So now definitely the Clockwork going to be able to pick up his level 5 a little bit sooner than Tusk. The Tusk going to jump forward towards mid though, as Wind Ranger was dropping fairly low. She will pop a haste, and Tusk will look to maybe soak up some experience mid here. Else it will be pretty much a wasted rotation. He wasn't able to fill up the bottle of the Wind Ranger, but he'll get a charge before regenning in lane.
Yeah, the Tusk has a bottle of his own, so he's able to sustain the Windrunner. Now with the Shackle connecting onto Fury, this could get scary for the Shadow Fiend. Power Shot will jam it home, and that'll be KZ getting themselves on the board. Tying up the kill score 1-1 in a big way too. The Shadow Fiend was having a good time in mid lane, although not dominating it by any means. Has completely bridged the gap, and that death is going to slow things down significantly.
Yeah, one triple stack in the large camp is going to be available to him. As he pleases to take it, and Ivy's going to look to take a little bit of experience on the Earthshaker mid lane as the Tusk does the same on the other side of things, but needs to be a bit careful. Fury now going to return to lane. Fisher going to be held onto for the moment, and the Tusk should be just fine here. He's probably going to have his bottle refilled as well, so a little bit of trading of the bottles from the mid laner, and Tusk going to find his level 6 fairly soon, so definitely a fruitful rotation towards that mid lane early on, but it is giving Tiny a lot of space in the bot lane, and he's going to find his 6 just now.
Shackle will connect onto Fury, but with the Fissure they should be able to disengage so many blocking tools in this mid lane, and unfortunately for the Tusk wasn't able to find a good wall off. Stallcat might be in a little bit of trouble here. Do they have another Fissure? Nice Ice Shards. Okay, so he's not really going to be in that much trouble. We'll be able to cleanly back off. That said, an early level 6 on Stallcat could be pretty huge for the KZ's side. Tusk, this game, as I kind of already touched on earlier, could very easily find kills on the supports, and it really is a tool that the earlier the better for Walrus Punch. It does scale up very hard unless you're getting a mass amount of farm, and usually for your offlane Tusks, that's not going to be the case.
Fury going to retreat to the jungle now, and going to be able to farm up these stacks fairly soon, so should help him out towards the mid lane. We'll see what kind of build it is for him. For now, it's just going to be the treads, but the PL on the other side of things doing very well in the safe lane, topping the net worth, or topping the CS chart by quite a wide margin, albeit the Tiny does have that 1 kill, but it looks like maybe an early drums build for the Tiny for now. Does have that bracer in the stash.
Yeah, drums on Tiny is a good item, although personally I would have liked to see him go towards the blink a little bit faster. Still, he'll be able to bridge the gap nicely, and if there's any other hero to open up for him, be it the Clockwork, be it the Shaker, he still should be able to get off his Avalanche Toss combination. And no matter how you get in range, as long as you are in range for the full combo, it does a massive amount of nuke damage. And maybe even keeps the Bracer just as a casual pickup instead of fully committing towards the drums. I wouldn't be averse to that either.
See if KSPR can pick up his level 6 anytime soon. Gonna have a wave, or would have had a wave coming under the tower, but it's gonna be side pulled here, so they are doing a pretty good job of denying him up some experience. On the other side, Stallcat has picked up the Walrus Punch, as you mentioned earlier, and hasn't gotten active since that mid lane, but Chen maybe now starting to make a rotation with Amazing on the Wyvern.
Chen's hitting a point where he really does need to get active. He almost has his mechanism done. Lucky is getting to the point where his creep army is going to be quite significant. Right now he has a max of 3 creeps, only 2 up and running right now. With the Dark Troll as well as Centaur, a decent pushing creep combination. But yeah, as soon as he has that mech, that's really going to be the time where Chen wants to start moving around. It looks like Chen has split his focus. The Centaur and the Dark Troll are currently down the bottom lane. It looks like they want to smoke gank with Stallcat, excuse me. The smoke is on the Winter Wyvern, and they haven't quite decided that they want to go yet. But this could be a very disastrous rotation for the Tiny. Snowball in, follow up with the Stomps, and it should be a pretty easy kill should they get on top of him. And Tiny seems like he's sticking around maybe too long. Snowball's there, they're going to open up. It will connect the Tiny. Does have an Avalanche toss at the ready. Will toss the Tiny away, but the net connects. Avalanche is going to do a good amount of damage to the Centaur, and Fissure will kill off the Centaur with a Fissure to disengage. It looks like that is going to be enough to save Tiny's life. Smoke gank unsuccessful.
Yeah, top. We see some aggression come out from Mantis as well. Maybe expecting some TP rotations in to help that Tiny, but he doesn't want to dive underneath the tower, the Clockwork tanky enough to survive that. So for overall, smoke gank thwarted, as you mentioned, and nothing really found for the Dire.
Yeah. Lucky was still farming up inside the woods with his other creep. The Satyr was assisting him and taking a couple of these jungle camps. So he's going to have the completed mechanism after this little Satyr is going to end up going down. Mechanism done on Lucky means this is time for them to ball up and push in some lane, probably into Mantis's. Right now, though, the Phantom Lancer isn't going to be contributing that much outside of an Aquila aura to taking the tower. They would have to commit so much to stop that push. At the very least, a rotation in from the two supports, Keeper's Light as well as Shaker.
Yeah, it looks like it'll be a mech build as well from the Shadow Fiend mid lane. He's already got the treads and 2 components towards that mech, so he's only about 300 gold away from that at this point. Snowball in top lane is going to find KSPR. The shards are going to be a little bit short, and he has the Walrus Punch, available, so a couple more right clicks will be there. The hook shot is going to stall things out. Rocket Flare there as well. The Lance, though, finishes him off, and Ivy's Ed going to come in. Shard's going to try and block him off. Greaves are going to keep Stallcat safe for now, and Ivy's completely walled in and brought down as well. Power shot coming in from the east, but Wyvern going to pick up that kill there, and this should translate into an easy tower push in the off lane here. Meanwhile, though, the Radiant side are having a push of their own against the tier 1.
It really felt like those cogs should have bounced back the Tusk, but sometimes cogs and ice shards are just the most finicky of spells, as we saw in that last exchange. And that's going to favor the KZ side. Now tier 1 tower is going to fall almost instantaneously. Mid lane looking for the raises onto the Windrunner. He's going to connect onto 2 of them, which will mean the damage trade is about even. Tier 1 tower up towards top is going to fall. On the flip side of the coin, the tier 1 tower down towards bottom for Dire is also going to die, as Tiny gets a well-timed toss to secure that tower destruction. Drums are complete up to 1,000 gold. Maybe Tiny just goes for the Aghanim Scepter. He could still go towards that more farming-oriented build, should he want to. He's going to buy a Quelling Blade, so I think that suggests that that's probably the plan.
Yeah, interesting choice. I would have liked to see the blink as well, but I guess he does have the extra move speed from the drum. If he pops it to close the distance, so maybe relying on that. But either way, it looks like everyone pretty much content to farm on the Radiant side. Looks like it's going to be an Aghanim's Rush from Sakura on the Wind Ranger for the Dire side, and she's quite a ways off that now, but has found some free space mid lane. Really no chip damage on either mid lane tower, despite actually Focus Fire not being skilled just yet.
Yeah. The Earthshaker is very behind when it comes to experience. That's kind of normal with your Shakers when they're playing this nomadic role. He hasn't been involved in that many kills. In fact, no kills for the team. And it kind of feels like a big window for the Denmark side has kind of been missed when you first get that hook shot. Is usually when it's the most threatening. But Clockwork has played very statically inside his lane. The only hook shot I think we saw was the one onto Tusk while he was diving the tier 1.
Yeah, just a defensively natured one, and I feel like the window for Kazakhstan as well is kind of opening up now, and they really need to start taking advantage of them having the mech. They only took that one off-lane tier 1 tower, which the Radiant aren't too willing to defend since it's not extremely significant overall. But they are going to bring Fury into the top lane with KSPR and maybe look for something here. We're going to have Lucky rotate over in hopes that they're going to be able to counteract that, but bot lane, they're going to go in on Stallcat, and they're going to find the Avatos combo on top of the Fissure. Although Stallcat is very tanky at this point, 967 HP, and he's not going to go down. Mantis going to look to chase. He's a little bit low himself, needs to be a bit careful for Keeper of the Light around. Chakra Magic turn with the Fissure, maybe would have killed him off there, but either way, he has picked up his Boots of Travel on the PL, so looking to get active early.
There is another Avatos available, but a big reason why that gank didn't work is it wasn't actually an Avatos combo. It was more or less just an Avalanche then a Toss. It does significantly more damage if you're able to partner both of those spells up together. They're going to call up the Tiny into the top lane, it seems. They want to get active, and maybe they can find initiation onto the Chen, but he has a full army of creeps around him, and is pretty hard to kill off with just the amount of bodies that he can block the hookshot with. One raise is going to be thrown out. Hookshot is going to be committed down towards the south. Doesn't connect to much of anything. Requiem Unwound is going to give Fury a little bit of space here as the wraparound commences. Earthshaker's there. Windrunner is going to die to a couple more auto attacks. Mantis is stunned. Looking for the follow-up raise is not going to be there. God's Hand is going to be shown and will heal up the Dire team. KSPR is going to eat Spirit Lance. There's your Avatos going to do a mass amount of damage to the Dire team, but the follow-up isn't immediately there. They'll chase forward for Stallcat. He's not able to get up the Walrus Punch and will go down. They'll throw the Clockwork to kill off the illusion. The Chen creeps are still going strong, but KSPR will survive. Do they have another Hadouken? They do not. It's killed off by the Earthshaker. TP attempt by the Phantom Lance, or by the Tiny will save him from the Phantom Lancer. Another Lance will be thrown onto the Korean Zombie, but nobody dies for the Dire team. Surprisingly enough, although everybody got low.
Yeah, Denmark looking really good there, able to spread it out, use the mech on the Shadow Fiend as well, and he got bounced back by his friendly set of cogs, and that saved him there. So really good engagement overall. I feel like the Wind Ranger was too influential in it as well, so really good engagement coming out from the Radiant side. That's going to give them a little bit of space to start finding their items, and Shadow Fiend's farming very well at this point on top of having survived that engagement, so it's boding well for them going forward.
Yeah, after that fight, Shadowfiend now has his completed Sange, going to be going for an SNY build this game, and I think that's absolutely fine. You don't want to be committing towards the BKB this early on, and even without any damage items, still does a truck ton inside these fights. Although the raises were a little bit underwhelming in that last engagement, it was still enough, and he was able to get off a successful Requiem and most importantly survive, where it looked like he probably shouldn't have. It's a Shadowblade Tiny. Alright, we'll talk about that in a second. Maybe there's going to be a fight up towards the top. No. Alright, so Shadowblade is going to function in a similar fashion to the Blink, although personally I really prefer Blink so you can get immediately on top of him for the Avatos combination. Shadowblade also does give you a minor amount of attack speed, which although on most heroes isn't super relevant, is something to keep in mind when you are playing Tiny. An incredibly aggressive build from the Tiny. I'm not sure if it's the right choice. It really depends on the next couple minutes of the game. If he can get good Shadowblade initiations, it absolutely is, but else I think going for the Ags or the Blink would have served him better.
Yeah, I would agree, and generally you can't sustain the mana of having a Shadow Blade on top of that.
He does have the
keeper. Yeah, so the Shaka should be good enough for him to do so, and feels maybe with the extra big right click coming out of the Shadow Blade that he has a little bit more kill potential, maybe a little bit scarred from that failed gank attempt on the tough spot lane. Invis Rune's going to spawn 16 minutes, and it looks like Stallcat should be able to pick that up. He doesn't have anyone nearby, but maybe he can look for some kill potential on Ivy's Ed's Earthshaker.
TP away by Stallcat inside the Roshan Pit will keep him safe. First usage of the Tiny Shadowblade is not going to be successful, unfortunately enough for him, and he probably will be showing off that Shadowblade to the creep wave down in bottom. But meanwhile, up in top lane, Clockwork is around the corner, will bump into an Invis Stallcat. There's a sentry down the ground, as you mentioned, but even though they see the tusk, it doesn't matter. He'll get the snowball and the ice shirts, Walrus Punch into KSPR, and even with a decent bounce back coming up from the keeper, which will buy a little bit of space for the clock, it's not near enough. Invis Tiny is coming in, and this is a very easy kill. Punch Toss, and that is a dead Winter Wyvern. Avalanche will connect onto both Stallcat as well as onto Lucky, but without an Avalanche cooldown at the a toss cooldown at the ready immediately, they won't be able to follow up. But Fury's going to be caught out with the stomp to follow up. Fury's going to go down, although that Death Requiem does a lot of damage. Hand of God is going to be thrown. Will it save Lucky's life? No, one auto attack will come through, despite having the sigil down on the ground. Shackle's going to latch the Korean Zombie in a lot of trouble. Mantis is low, but he's still going to commit. The Earthshaker does have a fissure. Can he kill off the Phantom Lancer? The Echo Slam will kill him off in the fissure for good measure. It'll cost him his own life, but definitely worth it to punish that very cheeky play coming out from the PL. Across the board, it looks like that favors Denmark quite nicely.
Yeah, it ends up being a pretty good engagement for them.
Or rather for Kazakhstan, sorry.
Yeah, pretty good engagement for the Dire side. They end up drawing it out quite a bit and getting about 2k in the way of gold and almost 3k in the way of experience. So things looking good for them there. They didn't even get to use that Winter's Curse in that engagement. So that bodes well for maybe the next couple engagements. They're able to use that. Still, though, the net worth is dominated by the Radiant side, but having them off the map for just a moment looking good, and that's a full Aghanims for the Wind Ranger.
The biggest difference when it comes to net worth on both of these teams is the distribution. If we take a look at the Dire side, although they are a little bit behind the Shadow Fiend and the Tiny, they have more farm on their auxiliary heroes. The Chen is sitting on mech 1200 gold. Maybe that's a point booster, maybe that's Arcanes. Depends on if he wants Greaves or Ags or maybe even something else entirely. But regardless, if we take a look at the supports on the Radiant team, the Keeper of Light, the Earthshaker, and the Clockwork to a lesser extent, he almost has his Blade Mail, still aren't sitting on any completed items.
Yeah, definitely the virtue of having a jungler early on, and we will see that point booster be picked up by the Chen and delivered on his way. We'll see if they look to ball up off that pickup as well as the Aghanim sector coming out on the Wind Ranger. Tusk has picked up a Vanguard, a little bit of an odd pickup there, but definitely one that could work out to his favor in this game, especially against the Shadow Blade of the Tiny. If he's able to absorb enough of that first right click, should be able to survive and dodge maybe the toss with a snowball.
Yeah, could very well work out for him. The game has slowed down quite a lot as everybody's just going to back off and farm. Tiny, even after just recently picking up the Shadow Blade, is going to get Walrus Punch here. The Avalanche connects. The toss, I don't believe, actually through Stallcat, so not going to be lethal damage. They have a Fissure coming in range. Another toss in 1 second. They'll toss him in for the Fissure stun onto Stallcat. Enchant Totem to follow up. Shadow Blade and Tiny's coming in. 1 punch, and it's a big one. Tiny's going to secure himself the kill, and as I was saying, he's back up to 2,300 gold after only recently picking up the Shadow Blade a couple minutes ago.
Yeah, Stallcat feeling a little bit ballsy with that Vanguard when the trade hits, and still the tier 1 being available to the Radiant side, he gets punished for it. So nicely played by that duo, and they'll find a pretty clean pick there. Diffusal Blade gonna be fairly close for Mantis, picking up that early Boots of Travel. Obviously not able to farm as quickly as he would like to, but it's only about the Robo-Magi and the recipe off of that, so should be definitely sub 23 minutes or so.
Yeah, the Vanguard pickup is nice, but maybe he'll regret that down the line as this game progresses. I'm not sure if it's going to be effective enough in the next upcoming minutes of the game, but yeah. It's another one of those pickups that, although right now is really good, could fall off very heavily. Shadow Fiend is going to be hunted. Ice Shards will beautifully block him off right into a snowball. Looking for the raise. He's going to try to channel the Requiem. Will they be able to cancel it? The Requiem is unwound, but doesn't do that much damage. Now getting on top of him, Fury is going to be fighting to the death. Winter's Curse, and it is going to be his own. Although the Death Requiem is going to do quite a lot of damage to Mantis. Mantis will try to get out of those Ice Shards, although it took him a little while longer. He will eventually do so. And all while that's happening, top lane is going to be pushed by Tiny and Clockwork. If they can defend this tier 2 tower, that's absolutely worth it for the Kazakhstan side, but Denmark will be happy if they can get this tier 2 for Shadow Fiend, although it's not the ideal trade. They'll be happy for it because Tiny is almost at Ags.
Yeah, he definitely created a lot of space there. It took quite a while to bring him down, and it looks like the Dire side are going to try and trade this tier 1 bottom as well. But as you mentioned, Tiny picking up his Ags fairly soon is going to be a pretty big deal for the Radiant side, and KYH looking pretty good on the Tiny thus far. 7-1-3, or 7-1-2, excuse me, overall. Diffusal Blade does come out for the PL now, so maybe the Dire side is ready to fight, but feels like this mech advantage that they had is so out of it's so out of the timing window at this point. And they should have gotten active early on. Already we're seeing the Radiant side invade their jungle. Start to get some vision down.
Mantis
find a hook.
Might be in a lot of trouble. Avalanche toss will connect on the real PL. And that's an insta-gib for the Tiny.
Yeah, the Clock as well as the Earthshaker looking for blood in the jungle as well. They do catch vision of the Chen now, but they are a little bit deep behind enemy lines and going to look to back off.
Tiny's Aghanim Scepter is done, although it has yet to fly out to him. This is a pretty disgusting amount of farm on your Tiny, and I guess that's to be expected since he was their safe lane farmer. He's had a nice mix of farming as well as fighting on this Tiny. It is showing in his KDA and in his farm in general. His last hits are a little bit behind that of the Shadow Fiend, but Tiny has been far more active. He's going to look with the Shadow Blade up towards top for the Windrunner. She'll TP out, and she'll be just fine, I believe. Yeah, that rotation in from the Tiny was spotted out just by the tail end of this Observer Ward on the high ground, which will be pinged out by the Tiny. I think he expects that to have been there when he went for the Shadow Blade rotation, but it has expired naturally.
Yeah, they can always recall him towards that mid lane and look for a push if need be, but for now he's going to shove this wave in top lane, and the rest of his lineup is going to assemble towards mid. Feels like the Dire side are a little bit choked into their side of the map, and Mantis is forced to farm out pretty far away from his team. He has the boots of travel still on cooldown for 20 seconds, but not sure that any engagement is going to be found within that timing window.
Shadow Blade will be popped by the Tiny, and he'll look for a pickoff, although I'm not sure if he's going to be able to find it. This time around, he wasn't spotted out by enemy vision, and now the Chen is going to be walking right into a Tiny, and with the Avalanche connecting, they should be able to toss down this Chen. Although Mechanism is going to make it a little bit harder, he has Hand of God, and will pop it, Winter's Curse, onto the Tiny. They're going to amp him up. The follow-up damage is there from the Phantom Lancer. If they can get on top of him, Snowball's going to be there. Walrus Punch to follow. But now Shadow Fiend comes in with the Mechanism. Requiem unwound. They'll be able to kill off that Winter Wyvern. More stuns over onto the Tusk, with the Tiny's Avalanche stunning him out of any potential escape. KSPR might be a little bit deep. A lot of his mana is going to be drained, but still that's 2 kills going cleanly in the favor of Denmark with no response.
Yeah, IVZ coming with a Blink Dagger out of nowhere on the Earthshaker. Big Echo Slam on 3 targets there and saves his Tiny as well. As you mentioned, Fury coming in with that Requiem and a really good engagement for them overall. And they should be able to take an objective off of this, whether it's Roche or the tier 2 in mid.
Yeah, that fight really isn't going to be taken by the Dire team if they know the Earthshaker has his Blink Dagger, but that's the way to show it off, I suppose. And it's going to transition into Trinket Boots done onto the Earthshaker immediately after that fight, and it's looking pretty good in general. Haste Rune on the Shaker, probably not going to mean much, if anything, in the grand scheme of things. And even though at one point their supports were lacking the items they need to be effective, Blink Dagger, Blink Dagger is all that Earthshaker really needs to be effective. And although the Keeper of Light's going to be a long ways away till he adds his Aghanim Scepter, is still a contributor inside these engagements. This is looking pretty good for the Denmark team. Right now sitting on a small advantage, although it's not insurmountable. By the enemy's side, Chen's window is pretty much all but gone.
Yeah, I feel like the Chen has really fallen off in terms of influence in this one. They're going to find a smoke bot lane and drop a sentry down as their smoke was popped, but they're not going to be able to find the Tiny who Shadow Bladed away. So they will get a little bit of aggressive vision down, but not exactly what they needed or wanted out of the smoke. And unfortunately, they placed the Observer right beside a Radiant sentry as well.
Everybody's going to back off. Right now, Mantis is spotted out by Radiant Vision as he moves around through his own jungle. Although this isn't going to be punished immediately, the wards that were placed out are completely gone by the Dire team, as I believe you already mentioned. And now it's the time for Denmark to look for an aggressive push. The Shadow Fiend has, I believe, a 10-second BKB. Yeah, he has the 10-second charge up and running. So even without an Aegis of the Immortal, they can look for these tier 2 tower pushes, or for pickoffs. Tiny Shadow Bladed deep behind enemy lines. This is an easy kill if he can land on any single person. Avalanche is there. He doesn't combo it with the toss, but he doesn't need to. He's hitting hard enough to where Avalanche toss probably isn't even the most effective usage of his time. Focus fires onto the Shadow Fiend. It's not doing quite enough damage, however, with the Requiem removing most of that DPS. Toss forward onto the Clockwork, looking to catch somebody out, but the Tiny himself is going to go down as Phantom Lancer gets in with the Spirit Lance. KSPR is caught out inside the cogs. The Clockwork is now also isolated, and it seems that Denmark has overextended just a tad bit. Chasing forward for more, the Earthshaker has a blink away in 5 seconds and probably won't be caught. That'll be all she wrote.
Yeah, a little unfortunate for the Radiant side there. The set of cogs coming out from their Clockwork actually pushed back the 2 targets that the Shadow Fiend wanted to channel the Requiem on, and then he stop casted it, began to cast it again, and by the time he got it off, he took about 50% of his HP and damage through that focus fire. So Wind Ranger really able to disrupt things via the back lines, and engagement ends up going very well for the Dire side, as you mentioned, a little bit spread out, a little bit overextended from Denmark, and now with the Medallion up, they should be able to take this Roche fairly quickly.
Take a look at the Radiant Vision. They're going to spot out the Winter Wyvern going for a D-Ward, so I think they smell something's up, and it looks like they want to converge on this Roche pit, but by the time they get there, it's already too late. The Roshan has fallen, and all they can really hope for is to take an engagement after the fact, and even that's looking hopeful. Clockwork's too far away, and it seems like Tiny losing his life there ends up costing Denmark a little bit more than they'd want to pay. The Phantom Lancer now has seized the top spot when it comes to net worth, and it's going to be a lot more survivable inside these fights. The new combination for Tiny, although always relevant, is going to mean a lot less when it comes to killing off the PL. I'm not sure they have the appropriate lockdown unless they commit an Echo Slam.
Yeah, definitely so. They really seem to rely on their cooldowns at this point. Can't just rely on the strength of their 5-man as they have been earlier. Shackle mid lane is going to catch Fury. There's no real follow-up just yet. Not going to pop that focus fire. Perhaps a little bit worried about what lurks in the shadows. Also, TP is still available to this tier 1, which has been standing all game long for the Radiant.
Yeah, Windrunner at this point, since she did opt to go for the BKB, although it is going to keep her alive and probably a good item pickup this game. Don't get me wrong, it is going to pretty significantly decrease her damage output compared to like a Maelstrom or a Daedalus or any sort of those cost-efficient damage items. Should she pick up this double damage rune down towards bottom lane, that changes things completely, and it looks like she's going to do just that. This is a pretty nice timing for the Dire team to look for a fight. DD and I believe a max, or 9-second BKB, excuse me, on the Windrunner.
Yeah, she's got the Aegis as well, so definitely is the time to fight, it seems, for the Dire side. They're pretty close to the Aghanims on Chen, though, and he should be able to pick that up and ship it out just now. So there seems that they're hitting a pretty damn good window. Unfortunately for them, no Ancients just yet, and if the Ancient Granite Golem pops, maybe they look to jump forward for a fight.
Yeah, that definitely could be the good to go, but even without that Granite Golem, I think they're strong enough to go for it, but definitely with the Granite Golem, it makes it all much better for them. It's going to be Black Dragon's mediocre creep to pick up, but you might as well, you're already in the vicinity, and well, let's see if they're going to pull the trigger. Looks like the answer to that question is no. The double damage rune is still going to have about a minute duration left on it, and the Aegis is still there for a little under 3. But yeah, they're respecting the teamfight potential, and they probably should. Mid lane officials going to connect on the Windrunner, looking for the Shackle onto Fury, not going to connect, and everybody will just go their merry way. It seems that this is a tense situation, but nothing's actually happening. Top lane, Avalanche Toss will connect onto the Phantom Lancer. Tiny's doing a lot of damage, but Hand of God will sustain Mantis just for good measure. As in mid lane, they're going to look for another engagement, but instead, we'll just settle for taking down this tier 1 tower. Visual land onto Sakura over on the north of this fight, but it's probably not going to be much of a fight at all unless Tiny comes in. Avalanche Toss will connect, but he's going to miss that auto tech. The Windrun was out there from Sakura, turns around with Focus Fire. Shadow Blade going to buy the Tiny a little bit of extra space, and Sakura is going to lose her life, Aegis, and the double damage rune. They have a BKB Requiem right on top of her as she spawns up, and that is going to be a lot of her HP down the tubes. Clockwork Hookshot is going to miss, and now Shackle is going to connect on KSPR as well as on IVZ. The damage on the Clockwork's immense with a power shot. They'll be able to secure that kill, and now Tusk comes in like a hero. Secure the double kill for the Windrunner. They'll look for the magic damage to kill off Winter Wyvern, but Cold Embrace will save her life, and now another Shackle will fly, although this one doesn't latch. It locks him inside those cogs. They'll lose the Winter Wyvern to the Death Requiem, but that is a small price to pay for a pretty big fight. I thought that'd go a lot poorer for the Dire team since Windrunner popped that DD before the Aegis died, but regardless, they're going to pull it through, mostly based off of slick execution.
Yeah, it was also definitely wise for them to wait on that Aghanims from the Chen. Having the 30-second cooldown on Hand of God after she got hit by that Requiem, was able to BKB up and get healed up by that Hand of God. So I was able to extend out the engagement. Sakura able to do a lot of damage, and now Tiny, after dying the first time, has jumped right back into his own death. 72 seconds on the sideline, and maybe this even spells a high ground push. Everyone very low from the Dire side, though, and they don't want to feed anything over just yet, but that is going to stifle the item progression of the Tiny quite a bit. 2 deaths in about as many minutes.
Although the experience graphs and the net worth graph doesn't really reflect a huge swing in their favor. Oh, it is a swing, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't show a big advantage. The momentum definitely is in the favor of KZ. The Tiny, after dying twice consecutively, is going to feel pretty bad about his situation in this game, especially since he's committed for a lot of cost-efficient items and hasn't completed anything major. He's still doing well KD-wise, but the feeling that he's going to be getting right now is that he's thrown away his life a couple of times, and the momentum is going back into Phantom Lancer's side. Scotty is going to be soon incoming for PL.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like KSPR has been particularly effective as well on the Clockwork, and now he's beginning to fall off. He's still quite a ways off of that Aghanim Scepter, the BKB out for the Wind Rangers, the Blade Mail not doing much there. Hopefully they can get him a little bit more active. They've only used that Blink Dagger on the Earthshaker one time, it seems, thus far. So things definitely in the Dire's favor, as you were mentioning. And the full Scotty is soon to come out as well for Mantis.
Yeah, really big leaps in power for them. The game is going to slow down since there is no Aegis, and it was pretty crucial, and KZ being able to take that last engagement. But I think the slow pace is going to favor them. As scary as the late game Tiny and a Shadow Fiend can be, I'm not sure if it's enough to deal with the Phantom Lancer and Windrunner when they're backed up by, most importantly, the Winter Wyvern. If you can catch Tiny inside that Winter's Curse, maybe not as the Winter's Curse target, but if he's hitting somebody inside the Winter's Curse, they're pretty much straight up dead. Unless it's a Shadow Fiend, of course, but any of the supports are going to be dropped incredibly low. Another Ancient Creep is going to come up for the Chen. This time around, he does have the Granite Golem, so that extra 10% HP, is it? 50% HP is going to be up and running for the team inside the fights.
Yeah, it's going to be, I feel like, very crucial to the Dire side, especially once they pick up the Scotty on Mantis. He's going to be extremely difficult to bring down, and with the Solar Crest available to the Tusk, if he throws that on him, Tiny is going to be hard-pressed to do as much damage as he wants to. So I think, as you mentioned, a power curve is starting to peak here for the Dire side. And Fury maybe in a little bit of trouble top, not scouted out, though, by the Dire just yet. And it looks like the Radiant are going to convene mid for a smoke. IvyZ leading the charge with his Blink Dagger. And the Shadow Blade going to be popped by the Tiny. He's going to walk uphill and find Stallcat. There should be a fairly easy pick onto the Tusk. He's going to miss actually the first hit with the Solar Crest, but the hook comes through. Echo Slam even committed to make sure that they get the kill and try to get out here. Mantis perhaps looking to fight IvyZ completely out of mana, and it looks like he'll just be the sacrificial lamb for his lineup, just accept his fate and trade himself over for that Tusk.
A reasonable pickup for them, but a lot of big items are coming out for both sides, to be fair. Keeper of Light has his Aghanim Scepter done, and since it is daytime right now, that is very crucial inside these fights, as he is able to constantly spam with those Illuminates, heal his team, and deal quite a large lump sum of damage. That said, it really isn't that important when you compare it to the likes of the Scotty and the Monkey King bar up for the Windrunner. The amount of damage and sustain from these two is absurd, especially if they can secure this double damage rune. I'm not sure if you get... Oh, it's bottled on the Winter Wyvern. Unfortunately, you can't share that. I really wish they would have saved that for Windrunner. Drop your stick, give the bottle, and then save that for the next fight.
Yeah, a little odd that they didn't do so, but Windrunner just picked up a gem now as well, so they will look to establish a semblance of map control here, walk through perhaps the Radiant Jungle and get some vision down. And look, they're already looking to aggressively farm, but the Radiant side grouping up mid. We'll see if they have a reaction here. Demon Edge picked up on Fury, so it looks like he'll go for an MKB of his own. 2 minutes until Roche spawns, so look for that to be probably the site of the next skirmish for both sides. Fury going to show himself mid. Stallcat not getting super aggressive, so feels fairly safe at this point.
Yeah, that MKB could be really crucial. The Solar Crest up for the Tusk makes him so very annoying to bring down. Between Solar Crest and Vanguard, he's probably about as survivable against physical damage as you can get with the amount of gold that he has. Blinking by the Earthshaker, not going to find any heroes, but is going to bump into a couple of Ancient Creeps. The tower is going to survive a little while longer. One more shot from the Shadow Fiend or the Tiny ought to do it, and they will be able to get that kill for the Shadow Fiend. They're going to get the Walrus Punch. Shackle will connect. Hookshot under the back lines. Not going to do that much of anything as the fight's breaking out over the side. Winter's Curse canceled. The channeling of that Requiem of Souls. Fury not able to get off. The Focus Fire doing a good chunk of damage, but maybe not enough. Still with a couple of MKB procs. Still secure it. Now they catch out the Tiny. That's going to be another death on a very crucial hero, as KZ find themselves with a really big engagement on their hands. Clockwork's Hookshot, I'm not sure what it connected on, but it didn't feel very consequential at all.
Yeah, a little bit unfortunate on the Winter's Curse there. The Granite Golem actually blocking out. They're going to find a Shackle on the KSPR. It's not going to latch, but Blinding Light and the Illuminator are actually going to keep the Dire side back from killing off the Clockwork for now. But I was going to say, blocks out the Tiny from actually right-clicking the SF, and he was able to get the Requiem off, but still, as you mentioned, Focus Fire coming through and doing enough to bring him down. So 3 heroes on the sidelines, Shadow Fiend and Tiny included. We're going to start to put some chip damage on this tier 3 bottom lane, and the buyback is going to be forced out from Tiny. It's available from the SF as well, but it looks like that will be enough to deter the Dire from continuing to push.
I'm not so sure. The Windrunner's going to go up to the high ground. Has another Focus Fire, hasn't committed it yet. Blade on the Clockwork's going to delay. Avalanche will connect, and then they bounce the Windrunner back. Hookshot and under the melee barracks. Toss isn't going to be enough damage, but with a little bit of help from the Echo Slam, it will be. They'll be able to kill off that Windrunner. A big nuisance off the table, and now smack down that Winter Wyvern with one more branch from the Tiny. He'll Shadow Blade forward. He has an Avatos looking for the Phantom Lancer, potentially. The Ice Shards aren't going to connect. Avalanche is going to be there onto 2. They toss the Phantom Lancer up into the air. Manta is going to buy him some extra space. He's still cleaving a bit, but that's a dieback on the Tiny. going a little too deep without his team, and now everybody else is going to have to retreat. Phantomlancer will be sent back home, but he has Boots of Travel, so maybe they even keep on pushing as soon as Windrunner is up. There's going to be about a 30-second window where there is Windrunner and there is no Tiny.
Yeah, it felt like a little bit of miscommunication from the Radiant side there as the Tiny chased out. Even if just the Earthshaker, who, albeit was low, just walks out and blinks behind with a Fissure, they probably kill off the Phantom Lancer there. But either way, he'll feed himself over for the second time there after buying back. And his item progression really has been completely halted since the mid game. He picked up that plate mail before dying in the mid lane, and pretty much that's all he's gotten since the Ags Yasha. So really starting to fall off on the Tiny. And on the other end, the PL picks up his Scotty before that engagement and also has 4,400 gold, and is going to be soon to pick up a heart here. Has enough for the Reaver just now.
Even though the Tiny does dive back, they secure a gem for their team for the Keeper of Light. And although that's not super relevant now, as it is nighttime and he's not going to have that flying vision, once they have that up and running, dewarding the Dyer's vision is going to be a piece of cake. And right now that vision isn't even that impressive. They have 2 wards on the enemy side of the map, but those aren't going to be long for this world. They should be taken out quickly. But also, not long for this world, Roshan with the Solar Crest as well as the Focused Fire. This is going to be a very fast Roche that, although scouted by the Radiant team, they can do nothing about it. That's a double life for your Windrunner.
Yeah, she'll be able to play very aggressively here. May even want to pick up a Blink from the side shop. Has 2,200 gold and does have that extra life. So definitely want to see Sakura in the front lines, and will do so now. So they do have a lot of initiation potential, and with both the Crimson Guard and the Solar Crest up on the Tusk, they can pretty much throw the Wind Ranger on the high ground and look for her to just take down the buildings before a reaction comes through from the Radiant side. Top lane, IVZ gonna look to find the PL. He will doppelganger away. Mantis is going to make it away to safety.
Yeah, and the Phantom Lancer just casually walks that one off, and now has a heart. This guy is super tanky, and although 15% HP is relevant on most heroes, when you have a Phantom Lancer that's this stacked when it comes to his HP pool, that's a huge amount that they're just giving to him with the aura offered by the Ancient Granite Golem. I'm not sure where Chen's creeps are right now, or if he even has that many. Right now he does have the Frost Ogre, and that's about it. They're going to look for a Shackle, not going to latch. Windrunner is completely out of mana, but still has the Aegis to the Immortal. Right now, what they wouldn't pay for a Keeper of Light on their own team. But Focus Fire has still been applied to the melee barracks, and it looks like they'll be able to get it. Bounce back by the Cogs down to the low ground. Requiem is going to be thrown out by the Shadow Fiend, but that is, although clipping onto the Phantom Lancer, not going to do that much damage. Avalanche will catch 2 onto the back lines, but the damage has already been done. The melee barracks have fallen. Now there's Shackle catching on KSPR as well as IVZ. KSPR is going to die first, looks for the hook shot away, but not going to be successful. Snowball in onto IVZ. That's a wicked sick for Mantis. And they have no buyback on this Shaker. Even though he does have his ultimate, he can't be a part of this next fight. This might just be over. I don't see them being able to convincingly repel them out of their base. Tiny's there with the Avalanche, with the toss. They might be able to get the Aegis, but now Winter's Curse over onto the Tiny. With a little bit of help from the Keeper of Light, they will buy some space, and Tiny will survive. But without a way to purge off that Solar Crest, is hardly doing any damage. They're going to lose Fury. Buyback is available for the Shadow Fiend. He's going to be forced to spend that now. KSPR joining the fray again, but a Shackle connects onto the 2 allies over on the sidelines that could have helped. No Focus Fire available, but still the damage is there. Windrunner is going to survive with the help of the Cold Embrace. The Razes can't do her, and she wind runs away, and that's going to be a triple kill. The Requiem damage almost kills her off, but she's fine. Blink away by the Illuminate. That was close, but that is a 4-for-1 exchange. GG going to be called out by Fury.
Yeah, very well played, even by both sides in this game, but the end game making, decision making from Kazakhstan. Good, a nice glancing blow with the Echo Slam from IVZ at the end of the day, but good play from the Wind Ranger, especially. And even Stallcat, even with that early Vanguard, was able to make that rotation towards mid and look to keep Fury down. And overall, very well played by Kazakhstan, and they'll take a 1-0 lead in this best of 2.
Well, thanks for watching here, and a shout out to the sponsors, Hitbox G2A, as well as esportgaming.com, Gosu Gamers, and all the likes. If I missed any other ones, I've been Granite Svi, he's been More Rage Please, and we'll be back up with game number 2 in just a minute. Don't go anywhere.